Hi, everybody. It's Alex here with Technology Executives Club and another edition of Technology Executives Review. I'm really happy to introduce you to one of our newest Board of Advisor members, Praveen Kamsetti. Hi, Praveen. How are you?
Hi, Alex. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me here.
Well, I'm really happy to have you here and introduce you to our community. And we appreciate you becoming part of our Board of Advisor program. For people that don't know, the Board of Advisor program is where members get involved and they basically share their wisdom and insights with the overall technology and business community. And Praveen, we're really thrilled to have you here just to do the same. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward for this.
Yeah, this is fun. So currently, Praveen, just for the audience sake, currently Praveen is the senior director and head of IT for a company called Aviat Networks, a big networking company. And we're thrilled to have you. He's also a member of our group. And we'll go through your background in a few minutes. But I was looking at your profile and I know you and I have talked before. And what we try and do for everybody in these initial board advisor interviews, just get a sense of somebody, their career, and some of the big lessons learned. And really, when you and I have talked, we had two big lessons that we wanted to not talk about right up front, but just sort of share as we go through the experiences. So I just want to point them out. One is that you're a transformational leader and you have actually a framework for transformation that you've created. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I truly believe in 4L leadership, which I put a framework for that, which I try to practice on every single day. Those are L for lead with empathy, lead for business results, lead with emotional intelligence, and lead by example. Those are the 4L leadership framework which I created. I think that's going to be transform entire your organization and enable the business to grow.
That's great. So I'm looking at, by the way, I'm looking at your profile here. So if I'm looking away from you, that's what I'm doing. So I ask these questions. So I'll see if I can repeat that for everybody. Lead with empathy, lead with business results, lead by example. I think you just said emotional intelligence, but the last one, lead with emotional intelligence. I'm not sure which order. It doesn't matter about the order. So lead with empathy, lead with business results, lead with emotional intelligence, and lead by example. That's what you just said, right? I got it right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Now, I have to say, emotional intelligence, I did a session with somebody else, and I always would call myself a C student on emotional intelligence up until a few years ago, where I started actually learning how to listen to people a lot more. Finally.
Right. I mean, I truly believe that emotional intelligence is a transformational tool, which helps us to get a bigger goal for longer term, right? So it's like a truly transformation for the leader, for the organization, right? Not just for the business, even for the personal side, I try to practice emotional intelligence and empathy on every single day.
That's great. I hear a lot of that from technology leaders. And I remember you and I had a conversation once about, without getting into names or anything, about we hear about these CEOs that are like, numbers, and they're ruthless about it. And you don't hear them talking a lot about empathy. You hear them talk about business results. You hear them talk about lead by example. We do see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't always hear from these super high level CEOs about empathy and emotional intelligence. They might do it around with their team, but we don't hear about it. And what do you think the difference is? Because you're doing a different role. You have people that you have to lead, right?
Yeah.
To get something
done. Yeah.
Get something. Is that the big difference?
Yeah. So let's talk about the CEOs. We're talking about the numbers, right? So obviously numbers are important. That's why business are there to make the numbers, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at the CEOs, for example, which I take it as inspirational leaders, is Satya Nadella, for example, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft, you and I, everybody knows that how he turned this Microsoft into a profitable, one of the most valuable company in the world, right?
Yes.
So one of the key ingredients he talks about it, one of the key tool he used when he started as a CEO for Microsoft, empathy. He lead with empathy, right?
Is that right?
Right. Yeah. That's what he was always talking about.
Yeah.
That helped them to align the entire team to his goal, company goal, right? And also help them to make the customers happy about it. That's how the whole thing is turned from where it was going to where it is today. And he talks about in several interviews, and that's the inspiration for me. And the
Yes.
other one, you're talking about why the numbers, CEOs only talk about numbers. The other inspiration leader is former CEO of Pepsi, right, Indra, right? She also empathetic leader, but one thing she added for that, which I truly believe, is
Yeah.
empathy with accountability.
Oh, I like that.
Right?
Empathy with accountability.
Yeah, because
Because it
one of
is,
the
you have to have the business results, otherwise we
absolutely,
don't
yeah.
get paid. I mean,
No,
let's be real.
no, then we're not in the business, right?
Yeah.
If you're not for numbers, then we are not in the business. So
That's
that's
right.
why if you look at my framework, it
Yeah.
has a lead with empathy, but the second one is lead for the business results, right? So those two go
That
hand
makes
in hand.
sense.
Yeah.
I see. That's cool. That's where that came from. Well, let's go back through the history of um, of your career a little bit, just for the audience, so they can listen or watch and learn about how we got here. That sound good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start. I like to start at the beginning. I always like to joke around, say we'll go way back. No, I'm kidding. So we'll start. If it was me, we'd be saying that. So I like to start at the beginning. And one thing I always like to know is the original education, because we start somewhere, and sometimes it's funny. You see someone whose head started in one direction and they end up in a completely different space. But it's interesting how it does kind of go in a circle where you see it. And for you, you got a bachelor of engineering at Osmania University, and I think that's kind of important because I meet a lot of people that are now leading technology companies, but you actually know not only how to code, but how to create a system, right? That's a big part of what you do in engineering, correct?
That is correct. So, yeah, going back to the long days, right? The olden days. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did my engineering back in India, 1995. I passed out
Uh-huh.
with the, it's interesting, Alex, is I did my civil engineering.
Oh, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Well,
I did my
that's
civil engineering.
that's interesting.
Yes, it's interesting career for me how I started from civil engineering to where I am today. But I'm always into the people person, right? I always wanted to talk to the people, the curiosity, how things will get done. So
Uh-huh.
that helped me to navigate into computer science. But the one of the key thing for me is back in late 90s in India, we didn't have much of opportunities for computer science. Computers was
Uh-huh.
just coming up. So I kind of went to I took some of the computer close courses and moved to this country in 1999. That's where I
Uh-huh.
came here
Oh,
and started working in New York City in financial industry for almost 12 years.
is that right? So let me see if that's on your profile here. So you went, is that I see Stryker. Is that what you're talking about? That was in New
Striker is
Jersey.
no, there's if you go down, there will be
Go
another
a
company
little
called
farther.
Travelers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know Travelers. So Travelers
Yeah,
Indemnity.
the red
So that was
umbrella.
yeah, yeah. Well, everybody knows that company. It's a great
Yeah,
company. So you got your degree, moved to the States,
yeah,
and good for you, man. And then you got a seat because you had that background.
yeah.
You were able to get a job as senior technology lead. So you were a senior technology lead at Travelers Indemnity, and you spent some time there. So that's a very foundational company experience for you, right?
Yeah, it's a foundational. It's one of my favorite companies to work for.
That's
I
great.
think that's a company who recognized me that I have some leadership skills in me.
Hmm.
I'm very fortunate and lucky to have worked with one of the finest leaders in the industry, very
Oh,
early stages of my career.
that's great.
Yeah, so I'm not going to name the people, but
That's fine.
one of my manager who I used to report to later became a CIO of that company and
Oh,
later named as one of the top executives in the United States at that time. Then I worked with one of the other leader in Europe. He also got awarded as one of the top executives in Europe. So what it gave me is the coaching they gave me, right?
hmm.
The how the leadership works. There's so many lessons, right? How do they influence the people? So my curiosity, my growth mindset always helped me to learn, and I learned quite a bit from those leaders. And Travelers is one of the company where I learned quite a bit from the leaders who I work for.
Now, that's great. Now, as senior technology lead, were you doing more back end stuff? Like what kinds of projects were you working on? Was it back-end stuff?
It's
was
most
it
of it in Travelers, it's all about infrastructure. I was in the infrastructure group.
Yeah.
So during my tenure at Travelers, Travelers was going through the technology upgrade, modernization of technology that time. So they were more of a mainframe shop, and they were going into the newest technologies. So that's where I was most of my experience as an infrastructure is from the Travelers. So we build those, the modern Oracle Exadata machines. Those are the ones, the very first in the industry we build there. So a lot of modernization, the data center consolidations, all that work is done in the Traveler. So that's I have a very strong, solid infrastructure background from that experience.
That's really important, I think, to understand how the core technology actually works. So it really ties in well with your engineering background. And then it's interesting because once you were there, you were a technology lead, and you made a jump. All of a sudden, you're a manager of ERP at a company called Stryker, and you did that for a couple of years. And now all of a sudden, you're driving complete production support for all their Oracle EBS and ERP systems. That's a big jump.
Yeah. So the opportunity I got there was the Travelers has the ERP, but they're only for financial systems they use for ERP. I had a very good experience. I used to manage that whole entire application, so I have a very good understanding of that.
I get you.
That got me into the Stryker, where I was a ERP support manager for their entire global support team. There they have a ERP for not just finance, but Stryker is a medical device manufacturing company, so they have big supply chain. Obviously, they didn't have finance, but supply chain was a big one.
So now you're starting to look at the whole company, including supply chain, and not just the other back-end systems. You're doing ERP and some of the other back-end systems. So now you're starting to see supply chain too. That makes a lot of sense because, one thing I've gotten from you just from listening to you, you talk about your 4Ls and you talk about understanding the business. So let me go back to your chart here. What's the one? What is it? Lead for business results. If you don't understand the business, you're not gonna be able to do that.
Yeah. Like I said, from my early career, even as an individual contributor, right? I always have a curiosity, and I was always a growth mindset person to learn something, to listen, right? I always used to go to these, all employee meetings, town halls, executive chit chat sessions. I always used to listen to them, how the leaders are influencing others. If you look at these big companies, Travelers and Strikers, they're pretty huge companies, right? You have 35,000 people. So the leadership there is to inspire and motivate, right? You cannot have the traditional command and control leadership. Doesn't work, right? The other one they call it as what, carrot and stick, doesn't work, right? There must be some leadership qualities, and that's where I kind of learned that how are they leading it, right? How are they inspiring the people? And the best thing I learned is that time probably I did not realize, but they are leading with empathy. They are leading with empathy. They are leading with emotional intelligence.
That's interesting.
So that's where I got into, my curiosity, my growth mindset, right? And my people skills. And somebody in, my organization, my team members, and my managers, mostly my leaders, kind of identified, hey, there is something, this person can lead the team, right? And that's how I got into leadership positions.
That's really interesting. So you started noticing, you were identifying these qualities. You were fortunate to work in an environment where you had great leaders to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because not everybody gets that experience, but not everybody also pays attention, even if they're in it.
Exactly.
And so you were curious, you had a growth mindset yourself, and so you were figuring out, hey, this is something different, the way they're communicating to us and how they're empathizing. That's where you came up with one of your 4Ls, right? The empathy. That's interesting. So you were there. Go ahead.
No, I'm there for 3 years, three plus years.
And then you got an opportunity at Tricor, a company called Tricor, and you became a technical engagement manager, right? So go ahead.
Tricor is a managed services provider for the Novartis Novartis is a huge pharmaceutical company. It's a Swiss-based company.
Yeah.
But they have another called NIBR, Novartis Institute for Biomedical Research. They have a separate research center in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So they have a separate IT for a research center, and Tricor was managing their entire IT. I was the lead for them, so I was managing their IT basically, NIBR IT. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So that's a big assignment. So now, even though it says technical engagement manager, you're basically running.
Running their entire infrastructure show for them. That's where we started migrating the in-house on-prem infrastructure into AWS cloud, the cloud migration, and big data. We had a big data because it's a big research center. There's a lot of data they're analyzing, right? So there's a lot of big data. We had Hadoop there. So pretty, technologically, it's a very different than what I did for Stryker. Stryker was more of manufacturing, ERP, big shop. This is more of a small shop, but at the same time, modern technology, migrating everything into cloud, taking the new technology, leveraging new technology, big data. So those are all things we did for NIBR. NIBR is Novartis Institute for Biomedical Research.
So even though I think you were doing some transformational work before that, this is one of those times where you can really say, hey, this was truly transformational. You were completely transforming the way this company the way their systems operated.
Yes, we did completely transformation in terms of technology there. But later, in 2016, we moved to Austin, and then I joined a company called Axiom. Axiom is a data analytical company.
I've heard of them. Sure.
Yes. So the reason my boss hired me is Axiom is a data company they have a lot of customers. Pretty much every retail industry, every financial industry is their customer. They use a marketing data for them for the campaigning purpose, right? It's a pretty big data warehouse, if you call it as. But they're all working in the silo mode, right? All these working, if you're if you're supporting a Walmart, for example, you have a Walmart team. If you're supporting Cap One, you have a Cap One. They're all silo mode. So the CIO for Axiom, who joined like a year before me, and they want to bring a centralized supporting model, right? Because we want to bring that all silo mode into solid centralized support model. Because I have this experience in the Novartis where I did all these, technology migration, and so she thought, and my manager thought that experience will help me bring these central support model for the Axiom. And that's where we transformed everything from silo model to a single centralized supporting IT team.
And that's for Axiom.
Yeah, that's what we did for Axiom. Yeah.
So this was an internal role.
Yeah, internal role. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you helped. Now, what are the areas you did there? I'm trying to read here. What systems did you change again? Over to the cloud and everything else?
Yeah, it's at Axiom, it was more of their on-prem systems. They use pretty legacy systems.
Yeah.
We built a hybrid cloud environment. Axiom built their own private cloud. Some of them we built into the public cloud. But the biggest change we did there was, it's a data company, right? So customers wanted to have a data sharing, a secure way of data sharing, right? Data sharing business, right? You have a data, somebody has a data, they want to share the secure way. And we went from cloud-based to Snowflake, if you know Snowflake.
Yeah, of course, I've heard of them, yeah.
So we migrated majority of our data warehouse into Snowflake, and it reduced the cost-effective way, and as well as the biggest one is data sharing, which our customers were looking for. So we're able to do them both in one single shot.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I call it as a transformation, right? From silo model to centralized support model, from old legacy systems to a hybrid cloud model, and then we went from hybrid cloud model to data sharing, secure data sharing model to the Snowflake. So it's an entirely transformation in 5 years.
What you went through each of these changes?
Of course,
that's a lot.
It's a lot of changes, but we kind of looked at it, what is business needed, right? So when we wanted to have a business have a centralized support model to meet our SLAs for our financial and retailing customers, so we put a centralized support model. Then the next challenge came is, hey, we're all very old and legacy systems. We need to have some kind of a modern technology, leverage modern technology capabilities in a cloud. So we migrated into cloud. And then we thought, okay, so some of the cloud environment is too expensive for us. And also some of the data privacy issues we had with some of the customers, right? So
Yeah.
we have some of the customers, they don't want to go into the cloud, right? Then we
Right.
build our own private cloud internally, right, to help our customers, for those customer needs, to cater those customers.
Uh-huh.
Then another challenge came. Hey, we wanted to have a secure data sharing model. Then some of those for customers to meet their demands, we went with the Snowflake. So it's kind of transformation from all the way from a single silo model with the legacy systems to all the way to data sharing in a cloud, secure data sharing in a cloud.
I mean, you changed a lot there.
Yeah, we did quite
That's
a
a
bit.
big story.
Yeah, it's a big story. There are a lot of stories, Alex. If you have time, I'll tell you one of the stories in my very early career. It's a very
Let's
interesting
hear it.
story.
Let's hear
Yeah,
it.
you want to?
Well,
Okay.
this is about how you became a transformational leader.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is about.
that's kind of a theme for you.
Yeah, this story I'm telling you is not about transformation, but this is the story which kind of changed my life. When I look back and got the connections and how it happened. So here is a story. It's a
Yeah,
very
I
interesting
definitely want to
story.
hear this one. Go ahead.
I
Yeah.
mean, so when I moved to this country, I think I told you 1999, right?
Yeah, you made a
1999.
big switch there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So very first, very new to the country, new to the New York City, right?
Yeah,
Into
it's
those
not like you
buildings,
didn't go to some small town.
skyscrapers.
You're in all of a sudden you're
Yeah,
in
New
New
York
York.
City, right?
Yeah.
So I got a job into reinsurance company. That's what later acquired by the Travelers Insurance, right?
Oh,
So
that's what
it's a
happened.
reinsurance. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
reinsurance company. So second day of my office was in a Broadway. It's in 38th floor, right? Second day of my job, and I didn't have the formal, onboarding process yet.
Yeah.
They said they're
Yeah.
going to be a couple of days later. So second day of my job, and then I wanted to go out for lunch. In New York City, you probably know this, right? In old
Every
buildings,
corner.
right? In old building. Okay, so in old buildings, I don't know now in new buildings, but in old buildings, there's always a staircase for a fire exit,
Yeah.
right? So in that, when I came out, I saw there is exit board, right? And then I didn't realize that's for fire exit. It's a very interesting story. Interesting incident happened. So I did not know. I thought, okay, it's an exit. I opened the door, right? And then went down. And I saw stairs. So I immediately realized I had to go back. But you know this, right? Those are fire exits. You cannot go back. So one-way entry only, because the way it's designed is once you take it, you go down to the stairs. You're not supposed to come back. You're not supposed to use elevators, right?
What
That's the way.
floor were you on? What floor were you
38,
on?
38.
Okay.
Okay. I realized I went back to the next one. It doesn't come out. Trust me, I did for 7, 8
I've
floors.
done
And
this
then I'm
before.
like, okay, this is not going to work. I went down all the way 38th floor down. I was so young, so that's not a problem, right? But here is the interesting thing comes up, right? I came back with of course, I used the elevator while coming back. I straight went to my manager's room, office room. And I said, hey, I'm Praveen. I just joined 2 days ago. He's like, yeah, I know you. Okay, what's up, right? I said, this is what happened to me. Now I opened this door and he couldn't stop laughing for 10 minutes. And he said, and you have a courage to come back and tell me instead of embarrassing yourself, right? I said, yeah, I thought I'll share with you. Here is the thing. Interesting is he did not stop there. He actually took me to every person in the department, IT department, and he took that an opportunity to introduce me. Said, hey, here is a Praveen, meet him. Oh, this is what happened to him today. And he goes to next person. Here is a Praveen. This is what happened to him today. Initially, the very first time, I was like a little bit embarrassed, but later on, I was enjoying the conversation, talking to the people. You know what? When I look back, right, what that incident gave me, a couple of things, right, Alex? One is I was courageous to go and talk to my manager.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened?
Even tell them. Yeah.
Right. Number two is I had trusted him. That instead of he saying, "Oh my God, you don't even know this," I thought, okay, he's going to help me out or something like that, right? And then there's a trust in that, right? And then the other thing I told him that why is that there is no symbol say there is no board saying it's fire exit only, right? So the lot of and then I was taking the feedback, right? People are talking about it. I got a good connection. Everybody knows me in the organization. Next day it's off because everybody's talking about it, right? And you know that they call it as what? Oh, walls have ears, right? So
Yeah.
everybody in the organization
Oh
knows,
my
not
God,
just
that's funny.
IT,
There's the
business
fire exit
users.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. But trust me, 2 weeks later in that building, every fire exit it's a fire exit only, and there is a steps kind of a board they install it. What did that tell you?
Oh, someone listened.
Exactly. See, so that's why I was like, okay, the curiosity, the courageous, the
Yeah.
trust, these are all will help you build your relationships and build
Wow,
your
that's
team.
interesting.
Trust develops it. So when I go back and dot the connections, I had that from the day one.
That's a great story. That is a great story. You
Yeah,
just
it's a
didn't
great
lose
story.
it. You didn't lose it. That's the
No,
key.
no, yeah.
You didn't lose it. Well, we're going to keep going on the curiosity because, one thing I noticed about you as well, some other leaders, is you keep learning today. You talk about curiosity, but you're still curious today. I'm looking at your site and I see that have all these different credentials, AWS Solutions Architect, CTO Academy, Introduction to Generative, and some of these are very current. Generative AI for AI executives and business leaders. You just took one from University of
Okay.
California, Santa Cruz. This is certification, right?
Yes,
AI empathy and ethics, right?
that's correct. Yeah, I just did it a couple of weeks ago. It's a fantastic, fascinating the class. I really enjoyed it. I think it's super important, Alex, that I know AI brings a lot of value to the business. It will
Mhm.
transform, right?
Yeah,
In terms of productivity, efficiency, right? Business decision making with the amount of data it can process in unprecedented time and
absolutely.
scale. But at the same time, it also brings up some challenges for us.
Yeah,
Those challenges are, one of the challenges is algorithmic bias. We know that, right?
yeah,
So whether it's a hiring process, whether it's a medical process, medical, diagnostic, or whether it is a loan approval, fraud detection, financial side of wherever it is. So I think those are the challenges. Data privacy challenge, if you look at it, transparency, right, fairness. So these are all the challenges it brings up, and these are not a small challenges. These are very complex challenges, and which can defeat the purpose of AI usage, right? So I think that class really helped me quite a bit on how do we have making sure that we have all kinds of framework in place for the AI empathy and as well as the other areas, right?
well, I mean, I totally agree to that and subscribe to what you're saying, you know, like other people who are fascinated by AI, because we're now entering that next wave. That next wave where agents are starting to happen.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's not just helping us read faster or look stuff up faster or write faster. It's actually we're going to start giving more control to the AI. And whether it's a bias issue or a hallucination issue, or the fact that it really doesn't, AI does not have empathy. You can't
yeah. It does not.
yeah, it doesn't. People think in our heads, it's easier for us to think, oh, it's thinking, it's feeling. No, it's not.
No,
It's
no.
totally guessing the right results based upon its model. That's all it's doing. So, if we're talking about an insurance company,
Yeah,
as an example, and now you've got fast forward, someone's on their cell phone or their glasses that have the phone. They ship you the glasses, or you're on your app. Here's the car. The AI is now saying, I don't think so.
yeah, yeah,
Boom, we're done. Or here's another situation. You know, uh, I admit, I'll admit to this. I got a red light ticket. Okay, there's no police officer watching me.
yeah,
It was in the street. I got a picture in the thing. I thought I turned right on yellow, for the record, Your Honor. So, but the red light thing, which collects fees for that district, didn't think so.
yeah.
So you get where I'm going with this, is that I think there are going to be a lot of issues in terms of how AI makes decisions. Yeah, I was talking to somebody else the other day who's works for a law firm. Here's a question for you. A lawyer uses AI to help create a brief. Another lawyer that works for the judge uses AI to read the brief.
See, that's why
Who's, let me finish the question. Who's doing the law? So it's a real issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just one little example. So I think you're in the right area. And I think we need people like you that think about empathy, business results, lead by example, and emotional intelligence, and not just somebody that's saying P&L 100%. P&L 100%, because then we are going to see it. We're going to see companies where in my opinion, it's totally programmed by people who aren't thinking like you, and they just want to get that product out, get that service out. And then you're going to see these kinds of examples. You get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. I am in no way against the AI usage or against any technology. We have to leverage the technology.
Oh yeah, it's happening.
It's just
it's
that
happening.
it's happening. You cannot stop, right? So it should go. The only thing I'm talking about is some kind of rail, right? We have to put some kind of
guardrails.
Right? That's leadership. That's why leaders have to understand that how we can put these regulations in place. I think you know this, right? You already have AI Act in Europe, a European AI Act.
Yeah.
ISO also came up with ISO, I think 4200 framework.
Yeah.
We know that NIST also has a NIST AI 100 framework, right? UN has one of the advisory board. So everybody into this. So these CCPA, GDPR, those are all for data privacy anyway. But for AI also, there are a lot of framework, right? As a leader, I think we have to make sure these are all covered. These are all addressed, right? These, whether it is algorithmic, bias, whether it's a data privacy issue. When you make a decision with the AI, with whatever decision it is, we should be able to transparently tell how we made the decision, why we made the decision. That transparency, I think, builds the trust between company and your stakeholders, employees, and most importantly, with the customers. Mm-hmm. And that's a super important, right? You know that. One of my friends tell me that trust is a new currency.
Right? Well, I think you're right. I think that currency's been around, but we've been able to take it for granted. Yeah. Now with AI creating everything, we don't know what's real anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think you're right.
Yeah, those are all. I think it's in an area where in the AI era. Now it's even more important that leaders have to collaborate, facilitate the between machine and the man, right? The technology and the man, humans, right? We have to collaborate. That's the leader's responsibility, right? Now even more that needed, because with the AI, your customers or employees have to adopt the change with no or less time. People don't have time.
Yeah.
To adapt, take the change, because it's taken so fast, right? The technology is taking over so fast that now it's the leader's responsible to make sure that you need to have that collaboration between machine and man. That's the leader's responsibility. That's what I believe truly.
I like that. And I hope that we see more of that and less of the horror stories that we can all dream about.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to be pockets of it happening. There's going to be mistakes. That's going to happen. There's going to be, we need governance. We didn't realize that. We need governance, but there's also going to be people that are leading like you with empathy. And there's also going to be people that are like, just get it done. Just get it done. And those mistakes we're going to see. So, okay, well, this has been great, Praveen. I just got a couple more questions for you. On your landing page, everybody, you may be watching this on the landing page, but if you're listening, go to our site, technologyexecutivesclub.com, look up our board of advisors, look up Praveen, and you'll see he's got a number of specialties and areas of interest. I just read a few of them: strategic planning, execution, aligning technology to drive business results, mergers and acquisitions. You just explained a couple of those. You've done that a number of times, actually. You've helped with that. innovation, digital transformation, continuous improvement. You mentioned that. Cybersecurity and risk management, resilient infrastructure, high-performing teams. That's a personal thing that you do, which maybe explains how you get things done. So any of those areas that you want to just tell us an additional story about or tie in together with any of those areas?
No, yeah, I think one of the key things for any leader,
Uh,
whether it's an IT leader, is make sure that your team is fully aligned to the business goals, right? What are the
mhm,
business goals? The one way I truly believe in, Alex, is that when you talk to the team, every single person in the team,
mhm,
making sure that they know what is the business mission and vision. What are they trying to do, right?
mhm,
And how we are able to align as an individual to get that there. There are three
mhm.
W's. I think if you look at this is something I learned from Exxon's CIO. Three W's. What,
What?
right?
Go
Why,
ahead. Why?
why, right?
Yeah.
What can I do to help that reach
Uh-huh.
there? Those are three W's. So what is the business goal?
Oh,
What is business is looking into? What we're trying to do? What is their mission and vision? Second, why are we doing that? And third one is how are we going to do that as an individual, right? Like I keep telling my people that for a system administrator, I'll give you an example.
uh,
For a system administrator, I keep telling that you're not just a technology guy. You are enabling the technology for the business growth, right? You align your technology, leverage the technology to get the edge in the competition of the business, right?
mhm,
So if you give an example of system administrator, he or she has to understand their job is not to bring up the system, making sure the availability. They have to
mhm,
understand why the availability is important for the business.
mhm,
Are we talking about, if the website, if they're supporting the website, making sure the website is up and running. If you lose a website, if your website is not available, we lose the customers,
mhm,
right? How are we, what is the important of your role, whether it is the availability of the system, whether it's bringing the more of a revenue value, or whether it's a customer's experience, right? Whatever it is, they need to understand what actually their work is tied up to the real business. Once they
mhm.
understand it, aligning the team is very easy. If you don't understand, if you don't make them understand, then it's very difficult. I don't want my team to understand, hey, I'm just a system administrator. I don't want them to be like that. I want to understand you are a system administrator, but you are helping to bring the business with the revenue, customer experience, whatever, right?
That's a great insight. I've actually heard this from other people that I've interviewed in a different way. I've
Mhm.
had a couple people where I've said, "What's some of the secrets of your success?" Right? And they have said, I've heard it from at least two in my head that I clearly, they personally for themselves are able to understand the connection between what they're doing in the back room
Yeah.
and what the client is experiencing or the customer experience. So in one case, it was healthcare. And they were talking about, hey, I know even though I'm working on a computer, I'm working on software, this is early in his career,
Mhm.
that it really comes down to patient care because I'm working on X-ray software.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he goes, I couldn't sleep at night knowing that if I didn't get this code correct, that somebody's patient care could be impacted.
Yeah.
And so, and I heard somebody else describe it, a similar story in a different way. But what's unique about what you're telling me is how you get that obviously for yourself, but you're teaching that to your team.
Yeah. I want to make sure that they understand it.
Yeah.
Every single person in the team has to understand the mission and vision of the company. That's the first thing. Whenever I take a new
And how
job,
they and how what they're doing
is
connects
helping.
to that.
Yeah.
That's
You
a
need to make the
great
connection.
that's a
You need to
great
make the
piece of
connection.
advice. Huh?
Yeah. That you need to make that connection. They have to make that connection. How what they're doing is tied to their business.
That's a great tip and a great story. And like I said a minute ago, I've heard people say, "Oh, I've made this connection and that really helped my career." But what's really great about your story again is that you're helping your team make those connections. So that will help them with motivation and helps them understand why they're doing things. Well, this has been a great interview. I just want to have you summarize again your 4Ls because I'm hoping you'll come back and we'll just do a session or two on the 4Ls. So go ahead. Why don't you say it? Your 4Ls.
Oh yeah. Lead with empathy, lead for business results,
Mhm.
lead by example, lead with emotional intelligence.
That's great. Well, this is, I mean, everybody get that framework down. This is something, I mean, if you look at, I mean, you've done a masterful job and man, you're just getting started, right? You
Yeah.
know, so getting all this stuff done so quickly is a direct result of your leadership capabilities. So you truly are a transformational leader. You work with the technology. The technology is a tool,
Yeah.
right?
It
Yeah.
is.
But you're getting all these different back end, all these, I don't know, just say back end, getting all these different systems, you know, transformed very quickly for all these companies and done in the right way. And a lot of it is because you know how to lead a team. You've got a framework to do it.
Yeah, this framework will help not just for the leading the team, but also to communicate with your stakeholders, with your customers, right, with your peers, with your C-level executives. It's for everybody, right? These framework will help us to enable the technology for the business growth and give the competitive edge in the market.
That's great. That's wonderful. Well, congratulations on your career to date and also coming up with this framework that's still working very well for you. And I'm sure you'll continue to grow more on it. So thank you for being part of our board of advisors. I appreciate you being part of the group. Appreciate your time today and sharing some of your hard-earned strategies and wisdom with our community. A great story. I'm glad you shared the elevator story with us. You know, great, some really good stories today, Praveen.
Great. Thank you, Alex. I truly enjoyed our discussion, and I'm looking forward for this Technology Executive Club meeting with the people and learning from there and share my experience with them.
Yeah, me too. Appreciate you.
Thank you.